Welcome to Malcolm Out Loud TV. This is Shannon Rose filling in for Malcolm Out Loud. Today's guest is a respected constitutional attorney, gun rights expert, and general counsel for the Second Amendment Club of America, Noel Flasterstein. Today there's a lot of debate going on in Washington, D.C. and among states with gun control laws. Some are calling for the Second Amendment to be abolished from our Constitution. But at what cost? That's why I've had Noel here to explain that, and thank you for being on Malcolm Out Loud.
By all means, thanks for having me.
Talk a little about the Second Amendment and what is planned coming up, and what are the changes that could be coming out of Washington?
Well, one of the things that we're looking for specifically, a lot of proponents for the Second Amendment and gun rights, we'd like to see what they would call a federal concealed carry reciprocity. And what this would mean is, for example, I'm a resident in the state of Florida. We have many laws that are friendly to the Second Amendment, or protective of the citizens' right to keep and bear arms. And we are allowed to exercise that right freely. But if I go to a place such as California or New York or New Jersey, I might have difficulty exercising it because the laws change. Now, me personally, as an attorney, I really don't think the states have any right regulating or putting laws affecting gun rights, but be that as it may, this is the world we live in today. I think the Second Amendment actually supersedes anything that the states do, and as I said, we live in a world today where the states are regulating, and it's continued for quite some time now. So I'm hoping that what we'll see in the very near future, an act of Congress allowing law-abiding citizens.
But here's, I want to ask you this question. This is what the opposition is saying, is putting the guns in the hands of criminals. That's what, by allowing people to be able to bear arms, and I know there's a law here in Florida which says if you go into somebody's property, they can shoot you, correct?
Well, it's not that simple. First of all, any legislation that restricts Second Amendments, our citizens' right to exercise their Second Amendment, not only is it unconstitutional, but again, this is designed for the law-abiding citizens. Criminals, no matter what the laws are going to ignore them anyways. So it's the law-abiding citizens, when we have these gun control measures that people try to put forward, whether it's on a state level or a federal, they're the ones that only affect the law-abiding citizens, because, it's against the law to use drugs, but plenty of people use drugs. Law-abiding citizens do not. The difference here being is that we do have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms. Law-abiding citizens should not have that right taken away. And if there's people in our country that don't like our Constitution, we'll go back to it. Go to Article 5, where we have the amendment process, and if there's something we don't like, we as a people can decide to pull that out. I don't think that would ever happen to the Second Amendment, but I don't think that we should just blindly ignore our Second Amendment. We need, if we're going to have a Constitution, if it's going to have any meaning, if it's going to have any substance, then we need to follow it. Otherwise, what's the point in having it?
And there's also a time period which they have to wait before they can go ahead and take the gun off the residence, or wherever they're buying it from, I should say. Is that correct? That there's a time period that they have to check into that person? Well,
that depends. Many states, such as Florida, where we do issue permits for concealed carry, if you have a concealed carry permit, you don't have to wait. You can purchase your firearm immediately. But if you are not licensed, then yes, there's generally a 3-day waiting period.
And that law dates back to when, because it's named after the gentleman that was injured, I guess, during the Ronald Reagan shooting. Is that correct? Am I correct on that?
I don't know specifically named after Brady, but obviously
the Brady bill, yeah.
As a result of Brady being shot, there is the Brady organization, which is against they want to restrict our gun rights. The point being is a lot of children. One of the things that we talk about, let's protect children. Very few children die from accidental discharges of firearm. It's very, very minimal.
But also, again, the opposition says, what if at night, one night, a dad hears something going on, he hears a noise, and the first thing he's going to go for is his gun? Well, what if it's a child coming in late at night, a teenager, or just a little child getting up?
I think the man's manipulation of fire has brought many great benefits to our society as a whole, but it's also brought some destruction and some hazards as well. Likewise, when I was the example I was trying to make you with driving, many more children die in car accidents than accidental discharges from guns, and we're talking on a federal or a nationwide level. I don't think the solution is to go ahead and stop driving. Likewise, I don't think the solution is to disarm law-abiding citizens. If you have laws that outlaw guns, then, like they say, the only ones that are going to have guns will be the outlaws. In terms of, you know, hey, accidents happen, that's a terrible fact of life, but as far as I know, most gun owners are very responsible, very, you know, I don't think, you know, contrary to what Senator Lautner would like to say about, you know, a lot of Americans will identify their manhood with their gun ownership. I don't identify my manhood with the fact that I own a gun. I have a gun to protect myself, having been a victim of a crime myself. Prior to being a victim, I never had a gun.
What happened with that? What got you into being a strong advocate for the amendment right?
The Second Amendment. Well, you know, as an attorney, I had many attorney friends that possessed firearms, and unfortunately, maybe it's a common in our society. A lot of my friends that are engaged in family law, whether they're male or female, as attorneys, they all have guns. And that's, I guess, because of dealing with the emotion and drama of the family splits. But I always thought, as an attorney, when you're dealing with some of the things that attorneys deal with, it'd probably be pretty wise or prudent for me to purchase a firearm, but I never actually did it. You know, it just didn't become a concern of mine until I was involved in what I guess we could call a high-stakes civil case, where there was a lot of bad characters fighting over a lot of money. And I don't know if it was an act of intimidation or if it's even related to when that case was going on, but I came home one day, found that someone tried to break into my residence, and in the process killed my dog. That really unnerved me, caused me a lot of distress, a lot of anger, a lot of anguish. So I decided at that point, I'm going to get a firearm to protect myself. Now, if I hear something going bump in the middle of the night, I don't go to the kitchen for that kitchen knife. I don't reach for a bat. I just take out my Glock, cock it, go see what it is, see that it's nothing, go back to bed, and I'm fine. So it was my own potential victimization, someone invading my home, that led me to purchase a gun myself. When I purchased the gun, and as I got it, you know, figured obviously I have a gun, I probably need to learn how to use it, learn a little bit about it. And as I became more involved in the gun culture, I discovered that, you know, the Second Amendment is under constant attack, that there are many people in our government, both on the state and federal level, that would love nothing more than to ignore that part of our Constitution or take it out. And that is a battle that is raging. And
why do you feel that is?
Well, I think there are people within our government, or people that have political ideologies, that think that they know better, kind of more of the granny state. Let's control the people, let's dictate what's best for them, that sort of thing. And I think they just think that society would be better off without guns. Well, I would agree. Society, the world as a whole, would be better off if there were no guns.
But then why is it we have this amendment? Why is it that having this amendment is important for the American people? That's the question.
Well, if we look to the founding fathers, and I also like to say founding mothers, because they had a lot of women behind them supporting them at the time of the creation of our country, you know, what they did is we got to understand and look at the historical context when it was put together. You know, sometimes there will be gun legislation that's coming up, and you might hear a miscellaneous senator or state representative say, "Well, what kind of animal does one hunt with this rifle, this assault rifle?" Well, the Second Amendment says nothing about hunting. The Constitution does not address our right to hunt at all. But what it does state specifically, a well-regulated militia be necessary for the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And the ideology or the ideas behind that, I believe, when if it wasn't for our founding fathers' belief in their God-given right to own and possess weapons for their own self-defense, I don't think we would exist today as a country, because how else could the founding fathers and mothers have fought off the tyranny of the British Empire? The whole point is that we have the Second Amendment is if the case should ever arise that we have a tyrannical government come to power here in America that we as a people, you know, I personally believe that we have four branches of government. We got the executive, obviously referring to the presidency. We got the legislative, obviously referring to the Congress and the House of Representatives, Senators, and of course the judiciary. And then I believe there's us, the fourth branch, the people. And what gives us our checks and balances on the other three branches is our right to vote. But what gives our right to vote any meaning, any substance, is our right to keep and bear arms, because our votes can be ignored. And Madison even pointed out and noted in Federalist number 46 that one of the things that separates us as Americans from the kingdoms of Europe is the fact that we trust our people with arms.
When we speak of that, we speak of terrorism. How about terrorism at home? Do these guns protect us at home here?
I think everyone, you know, not only do we have a constitutional right, we have a God-given right. I believe in a deity. I know some people don't. That's fine. But I believe we all have a right to protect ourselves. And this is the most effective means, whether it's the ownership of a handgun or a shotgun or rifle of some sort, that allows us. Now, terrorists are going to get, from my perspective, are going to get their hands on guns, weapons, whatever they need, because what they're doing is illegal to begin with. At least now, you know, an interesting thing, if we look at where all these shootings happen, the University of Virginia, University of Alabama, Columbine, these are all happening at schools. And there's a reason why it's happening there, because people hate students? No. A lot of laws, and unfortunately Florida is one of them, and I would hope that Florida would change
which speaks of they're currently looking at an open carry law. And to switch gears here real quick, is the open carry law itself, why are people fighting against it?
Well, they have visions of the old Wild West and people shooting each other for the slightest trespass. Well, that's not the case. And my research has revealed, when I did some, was reviewing data from the late 1860s regarding the West, and I was looking specifically at cowboy mortality rates from gunfights. The late 1860s, the West, and this is a large area encompassing California, New Mexico, Arkansas, Texas, so forth and so on, the average death resulting from a gunfight was one a month. The thing is, it's been said an armed society creates a more polite society. I believe that. Wyatt Earp, a famous cowboy lawman, very rarely used his gun, and in fact I was doing some research where he once was about to engage in a gunfight, and he told his potential arrestee, Bill, we can shoot it out, one of us is going to go in a coffin, or you can just come along with me and we'll both wake up tomorrow. The would-be or the arrested individual, obviously recognizing the better choice, opted to go ahead and go in. I don't think, right now we got 43 states that have open carry, which means people can, law-abiding citizens can openly carry their firearms. And we don't have the Wild West. We don't have people shooting each other over the slightest trespass. I think most people are responsible. Now let's go back to one of the things I was mentioning, where these mass shootings do occur. University of Virginia, Alabama, Columbine School. Well, Florida, like many states, have what they call gun-free zones. And the idea is if we don't have guns there, it's going to make it safe. And I guess we got to protect the children, so we're not going to allow any guns or firearms in these schools. Well, the would-be terrorist, the would-be person that is going to commit some ill will or break the law knows if he goes to this gun-free zone, he's probably not going to be challenged, because all the law-abiding citizens aren't going to be armed. Likewise, with the recent shooting of Mrs. Gifford in Tucson or in Arizona. Mm-hmm. This is a political gathering. By and large, here in Florida, if you have a public speaking political rally event, you're not allowed to have a firearm. So these gun-free zones, which are designed to make the law-abiding public safer, actually just make it safer for the criminal. Well,
Noel, I want to thank you so much for enlightening us about the Second Amendment. I think I learned a lot here, and thank you for being on Malcolm Out Loud. And you can find out more information about Noel Flasterstein by visiting gunrightsforyou.com. And again, thank you for being on our show today and explaining a little bit more about the Second Amendment. I'm Shannon Rose, filling in for Malcolm Out Loud. Remember, get involved, get loud, and think on the brink.